Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome to the next episode of House Talk Pregame. And I am your host, empowerment coach, and inspirational speaker, Dr. Lauren Pitts. And as always, I'm excited to have my co-host with me today. I will tell you that Ronnie Ransome and Andre Garlick are not able to be with us today, but it's okay. They are with us in love and spirit. But I do have with me J Money, Jared.
Good morning.
Jared. Hey, baby.
Good morning. How you doing? Two-man show,
yeah.
but we'll do good. We'll give it to you.
We're gonna hold it down. This is Jared Johnston, folks, representing alumnus and scholar athlete from Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland. Look, folks, House Talk Pregame, it really is all about family and showing much love to our HBCU family, student and professional athletes, and their families. But really, the entire family of Black and Brown communities all over the nation and all around the world. And speaking of family, our House Talk Pregame family has grown because we are now a part of Heritage Sports Radio Network, and you'll be able to check us out on HSRN real soon. Jared.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great on this beautiful Saturday. I'm out in LA, so the weather is pretty nice out here, not compared to the East Coast. But we're back again, as Dr. Pitts said. Excited to be back as always to dive into the brand new House Talk Pregame, which is on a much different level than before. So every single week we're stepping it up. We're bringing the real facts to you guys. We're bringing raw knowledge to you. Making some new discoveries, sharing our truth as people, and always, as we promise, to be very transparent so you guys can receive even more value out of this. We know that you guys care. We know that you guys may be tired with things that are still going on in the world today, but we have the answers for you. We have the platform to let you escape that for a little bit and just relax and hear some great knowledge. So it's time to optimize. And also, every week, we're taking call-in questions and comments. You can simply dial direct at 515-605-9744, or you can email your HBCU shout-outs, questions, or comments to htpregame@gmail.com. Give it back to Dr. Pitts to go into the diagnosis of the week.
Yes. So one of the things when we all got together and we're fleshing out how we wanted to take House Talk to the next level, i.e. introducing to our global listening audience House Talk Pregame, we had this really deep discussion about mental health and mental wellness and mental illness within Black and Brown communities all over the nation and all over the world. And we decided that we were going to use our platform to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And what we mean by that is we decided that we're going to bring to you a diagnosis of the week every week. As many of you know, and for those that may be tuning in for the first time, Ronnie and I are both mental health practitioners, and we are very, very passionate about doing our part to help our Black and Brown brothers and sisters, colleagues, and family members, whether it be by blood or just by design of us being members of the Black and Brown communities. We want to contribute to your mental wellness. We want to make sure that you are educated and empowered and have the information that you need to be of sound mind. So today's diagnosis is body dysmorphic disorder. Body dysmorphic disorder, also known as BDD, is a common, often severe, and complex disorder characterized by excessive concern about one or more perceived defects in one's physical appearance. Individuals with BDD believe that they look abnormal in some way, for example, hideous, ugly, or deformed, whereas to others, they are normal looking. Individuals with BDD suffer from significant emotional distress that can feel overwhelming and or difficult in their daily and create difficulties in their daily functioning. For example, they can have trouble focusing or concentrating, being around other people, dating, socializing, or doing schoolwork or a job. These difficulties contribute to diminished quality of life, which may be severe. In some cases, BDD can lead to repeated psychiatric hospitalizations and suicide. I want you to pay attention to this next part, folks, because this is key. Common negative beliefs about these areas of concern include defective appearance. My body part is deformed or flawed. My skin is terribly scarred, or I'm going bald. Coloring. My legs are too pale. My face is too red or too splotchy, uneven, etc. Shape and size. My biceps are too scrawny. May involve body build, muscle tone, muscularity, and or the size or shape of any body area. Asymmetry and disproportion. My eyebrows are uneven. In an attempt to fix or hide perceived flaws, most individuals engage in time-consuming repetitive behaviors such as excessive mirror checking, excessive comparison with the appearance of others, excessive and or self-injurious skin picking or hair pulling. The intent is to improve appearance, not cause self-injury. Excessive elaborate grooming routines, combing hair, shaving, constantly brushing those waves, constantly stroking the beard or the goatee, wearing clothing, accessories to camouflage the flawed body part, adopting elaborate makeup, beauty routines to hide the perceived defect, seeking reassurance about appearance from friends and family, doctor shopping for cosmetic treatment, i.e. surgical, dermatologic, or dental, feeling the body part or running one's fingers over the body part to check it, checking for bumps, size change, or other perceived flaws, frequent clothes changing to find a more flattering outfit or one that hides perceived flaws better, taking excessive selfies to check one's appearance. Signs and symptoms. Appearance preoccupation. Appearance preoccupation. Well, what that was all about.
Got it.
Repetitive, compulsive behaviors. And let me say this. BDD preoccupations fuel repetitive, compulsive behaviors that are intended to fix, hide, inspect, or attain reassurance about the disliked body parts. Comparing, mirror checking, excessive grooming. This is what I found most disturbing. These statistics that I'm getting ready to share, and then we can move on. I swear to you, I read these stats probably 3 or 4 times because I was blown. Because as I was reading and researching, I thought of people that I know, male and female, scholar athletes, former athletes, and even folk that aren't athletes. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Many individuals with BDD report intense feelings of shame and low self-esteem. A deep sense of self-loathing may result in the belief that they are fundamentally inadequate, unacceptable to others, unlovable, or that they will always be alone because of how they look. Emotions that are common in people with BDD include depression, anxiety, self-consciousness, guilt, frustration, anger, disgust, and grief. Only 1%, and I say only very, 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 very lightly, only 1% of the population that we're aware of suffers from BDD. However, what is greatly alarming is that people with BDD, whether it's diagnosed or not, because we know that because mental illness is such a stigma in Black and brown communities, people aren't going to the doctor. So there's plenty of people that are suffering with BDD that we don't even know about, right?
Right. A lot of
I
see that a lot.
Right. 1% of the population that we're aware of, Jared, is actually diagnosed with BDD. But what we found is that a BDD diagnosis can lead to major depressive disorders at a rate of 30 to 90%. Anxiety disorders at a rate of 30 to 40%, which, here's where it gets even scarier, can lead to higher rates of suicidal thoughts at a rate of 75% and suicide attempts of at least 25%. So, listeners, you might be saying, Dr. Pitts, you just blew my mind. I didn't know, and I know some people, or I didn't realize. I thought that I was just stroking my own ego and just how beautiful I am, how tight my muscles are, and this, that, and the third. But you may be thinking now, I just shared some information that provoked your thoughts. So now what do you do? If this is you, or if you think that this may be someone that you love and care about, the first thing that I would suggest is seeing someone like Ronnie, like myself, a mental health professional in your area, and you need to be formally assessed. Therapy can help you to identify and examine, and here is something key, the trauma that stands at the beginning of the behavior. Something happened that contributes to your having these thoughts about yourself. And as mental health practitioners, we can help you get to the root cause of what is fueling this low opinion that you have about yourself. You can also meditate, not meditate on your looks or your appearance, but you can also engage in meditation practices that a mental health practitioner can help you to find meditation practices that would work or could possibly work for you. You may also want to consider art. Even if you're not artistic, I encourage my clients to draw their pain and to be honest with themselves and honest with the paper or the canvas that they're drawing their pain on. Massages by a professional masseuse can be beneficial. And then the other one is medication intervention. And that is typically, that's usually my last resort, because what we found is that the medication that is used to treat obsessive compulsive disorder can be helpful with people that suffer from BDD, because it impacts the part of the brain where those thoughts get stuck that has you obsessively thinking about what you perceive is wrong with you. I know I said a mouthful, but I kid you not. What I didn't research, Jay, is I wonder if somebody suffering from BDD, if that contributes to steroid use or other performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's especially maybe for males, more so, because the whole wanting to be macho, wanting to look a certain way, how a man is supposed to look. I think you probably see it with that. And then another thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking was the aspect of social media now with somebody who is suffering from BDD. I mean, for people who aren't suffering from it, it can be tough because Instagram and things like that, they give off an image of what a black girl is supposed to look like, what a black man, a white woman, and a white man is supposed to look like. And if you already have something that's wrong with you, and people can visually see that, I think that they probably suffer more than the average. I've never heard of that. So again, I'm always getting educated on these BS.
So you on the couch again?
Yeah, I am. Definitely. So I appreciate those, just like I know everybody else on the other side of the call does. So let's hop into the HBCU shout-outs. As we do every week, we got to give love to our HBCUs all across the country. A lot of them, which many of the audience, even myself, has not heard of. So this is great to, shed some light on them. For me, I'm going to shout out Virginia Union, which is in Richmond, Virginia. It was founded in 1865 by the American Baptist Home Mission Society after the Union troops took control of Richmond. And I've been to Virginia Union a couple of times for football games. It's in a great area, Richmond, the city, so I think a lot of people should definitely check that out if they want that city environment. Some notable alumni. A lot of people may know this. Ben Wallace, who played in the NBA for multiple years, won a championship with the Detroit Pistons, was Defensive Player of the Year while he was in Detroit. And then Rosalind M. Brock, who was the chairman of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Nice. So
that's Virginia Union right there, right in Richmond, Virginia. The second college I'm shouting out is Philander Smith College, which is a private HBCU in Little Rock, Arkansas. They are a founding member of the United Negro College Fund, and the school was founded in 1877 under the name of Walden Seminary, and the purpose of it then was to provide educational opportunities to the freed slaves west of the Mississippi River. So they have a lot of history right there. As far as sports, they compete in the NAIA division, and notable alumni, Jeeves Osby, who was a former Harlem Globetrotter player and coach, and then another notable alumni is Al Bell. He's the founder of Stax Records and former president of Motown Records. So it's a small college I've never heard about, but they have some powerful people, coming out of there on the alumni side. Those are my two shout-outs. You got it, Dr. Fitz.
Indeed. And I'm shouting out too, and I went into a little bit more detail on my shout out today, only because there, as you said, we're learning information about some of these HBCUs that maybe we've heard of or haven't heard of, but there's definitely, as we're conducting this research, there's just so much stuff that we're finding out that I find out is just fascinating to me. So I'm shouting out today Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida. Bethune-Cookman University is affiliated with the United Methodist Church, and we're hearing that theme, right? A lot of these HBCUs have started out with church affiliation. Bethune-Cookman College was a result of the merger in 1923 of the Daytona Normal and Industrial Institute for Girls. Didn't know that. Founded in 1904 by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and Cookman Institute for Boys, founded in Jacksonville in 1872 by Reverend D.S. Darnell. In 1942, Bethune-Cookman College became a 4-year institution, and in 2007, the school became Bethune-Cookman University. There is an amazing room, for those of you who don't know, there's an amazing room dedicated to Mary McLeod Bethune at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. I've been there a few times, and I love that room because they've got this audio playing of her voice doing a speech. I don't even know where she was when she did the speech, but it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Their motto, which I thought was really cool, is enter to learn, depart to serve. Notable alumni. Notable alumni, Lucille O'Neal, mother of former NBA player Shaquille O'Neal. And she's a longtime supporter of the Bethune-Cookman University School of Nursing. Yeah. And here's something, Jay, I'm like, okay, who knew? Bethune-Cookman has produced 17 NFL players, including most recently wide receivers Ryan Davis and Eric Weems. My second shout out. I didn't know it till I read it. I was like, whoa. And I didn't realize that Ryan Davis actually played for my Dallas Cowboys for a minute, too. I'm like, yeah. Okay. I was like, all right. My second shout out is Edward Waters College in Jacksonville, Florida, which is also my alma mater. EDUB, as we call it. Edward Waters College is distinctively Florida's oldest independent institution of higher learning, as well as the state's first institution established for the education of African Americans. Edward Waters College began as an institution founded by blacks for blacks. In 1865, following the Civil War, the Reverend Charles H. Pierce, a presiding elder, here we go, of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, was sent to Florida by Bishop Daniel Alexander Payne. Observing the fast-paced social and political changes of the Reconstruction era, Reverend Pierce immediately recognized the need for an education ministry, as no provision had yet been made for the public education of Florida's newly emancipated blacks. Assisted by the Reverend William G. Stewart, the first AME pastor in the state, Pierce began to raise funds to build a school. This school, established in 1866, was to eventually evolve into Edward Waters College. From the beginning, EWC was faced with both abject poverty and widespread illiteracy among its constituents, resulting from pre-war conditions of servitude and historical, legally enforced non-schooling of African Americans. However, the school met the needs of its community by offering courses at the elementary, high school, college, and seminary levels. Construction of the first building began in October 1872 on 10 acres of land in Live Oak. Further support of this new educational institution has resulted in EWC, which is now actually on Kings Road in Jacksonville. Notable alumni: Jim Cannonball Butler, former NFL running back, and Betty Hulsendorf, former Florida State representative from Jacksonville. They also, and I was surprised because it wasn't noted in all the research that I did, but the first African American fire chief in Jacksonville is an African American gentleman who's actually one of my dear colleagues and friends. His name is Dr. Charles Moreland, the first black fire chief in the, not just in Jacksonville, but in the history of the state of Florida. Phenomenal man. He serves on the Fulbright Specialist roster with me, and he is also the right-hand man of the mayor, of the current mayor of Jacksonville. Phenomenal. So phenomenal. Just wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Charles Moreland because he's doing extraordinary work down there in in Duval County.
Yeah, Duval. No, those are some good shout outs though. Every single time it's like this black excellence just pouring everywhere. Yeah. Like once we get to the alumni, it's just amazing. It just goes to show how strong, the mind is, African Americans, things like that. And that even segues into our topic today, which is titled "Education is Key." Now, when people think of education, they think of education. Typically, you go to school, you sit down, you get the curriculum, you do the curriculum, you pass or you don't pass. A lot of people think of education like that, but I think just from the alumni that we just spoke of briefly, I can only imagine how important education was in their growth and their success. And we're going to get into that and talk about how you have to have formal education, but you also have to have informal education, which I'm pretty sure those alumni put into their lives to get to that point. So we're going to talk about that as well. And the title comes out of the book from Cleesa Loafers that I authored in 2019, which focuses on the transition phase for athletes post-athletic as they do detach from their respective sport, which can come with a lot of struggles mentally and socially. So it sheds light on that. It gives ideologies to overcome that and go on to still be successful in any path that you choose. We're going to start it off now with one of the most important things. Coming out of high school, going into college as a freshman, you have to select a major, or you can go into a school undecided. And it's very, very important, and a lot of people may undermine it because they're not looking 4, 5, 10 years down the line. But we're going to talk a bit about how important it is to go into a major that is going to be something that you truly are interested in, and you aren't picking your major solely based around being more available for football practice, football games, meetings, and things like that. Dr. Pitts, if you had anything to say before we go into it about the major from your perspective, as a parent, things like that.
Yeah, as a parent, as an educator, as someone that's passionate about education, I think that it's really important, as I said a few shows ago, that our scholar athletes, particularly at the high school level, that they take the time to do a career inventory assessment. This is not a promotion of the Myers-Briggs, whichever aid it goes, but the one that they have is like $29.95, and the reason why I like theirs is because they give us the information on the IQ, the intelligent quotient, and it's just a really comprehensive assessment that can help students to dig a little deeper and really find out what's going on in their psyche, what's fueling their desire for continued education, and what that looks like as it relates to their career path, right? So, there might be institutions of higher learning that get mad at me for saying it really bothers me when students go into college and they have not declared a major. I think that it's wasted money. I think that it's better. I believe that it is more cost effective and more effective overall to take the time to do the research and the career exploration, wish more schools taught it, to find out what would be a good fit before deciding even where you're going to go to college. Because, even the college where you go to, why would you want to go to a college or university that doesn't have a rock-solid curriculum in your field of study? That just doesn't make sense to me. So I want to hammer that home of the importance of doing the pre-work of finding out what career path would be best suited, and then letting those findings govern, if you will, the schools that the scholar athlete considers even applying to. I think that's very important. It's a very important approach and strategic approach to have to continued education.
That makes sense. I went into it and I didn't do any type of research going into looking for a major. I didn't want to look up anything about it. I kind of just got to my junior college, and I first started off as undecided. And even though I was undecided, that doesn't mean I was still searching and trying to become decided on a major. I was just going through the motions. And I only decided, which I believe I speak on briefly in an earlier show, is I only decided to major in criminal justice because my credits would transfer from my junior college. So basically, football determined what I was going to get my degree in. I didn't determine what I wanted to get my degree in. And it was and the thing about it was a major that I actually liked, certain classes. And the only thing is I didn't capitalize on my major. And I could have tried to get internships in the forensics field because forensic science was the part that I was engaged the most in that classroom. It was hands-on. It was different than just sitting at your desk for an hour and 20 minutes. We actually got to interact and do things. And I just never tried to get an internship in it. So I think it would have been, it will also be good if you look at your major, then get a list of the courses that you would take as well. I don't think you should go into anything blindly. I think that even if you are undecided coming out of high school, don't rush into just getting a major that, your coaches may force on you or anything like that. I was really safe to take your time. But just like Dr. Pitts said, I think taking a career assessment, which I wish I had when I went into college, would definitely help and at least get you started, in the right direction. Because I've seen a lot of guys, you go into a major that you may not be interested in, graduate, you don't even do anything with that degree in that major. And that's not just for athletes. There's some people who are general students that maybe major in economics and they graduate and, they become a counselor or something like that. So I think at the end of the day, the best way to set yourself up for success related to your major is to do the research as early as possible. That's what I think is the most important thing. And that's all around the formal education.
Hold that thought for 2 seconds, Jay. Hold on for 2 seconds. I wanted to add this before you segue. Last week I called out HBCU presidents. This week I'm calling out coaches and athletic trainers at the high school level. It bugs me that coaches, that coaches and others that are invested in the athletic trajectory of these scholar athletes are not putting the appropriate emphasis on the educational component. And I think, and I know, let me just put the disclaimer out there. I know that this is not the case with all coaches and with all athletic trainers and with all parents. But what I will say is this. What I am challenging folks to do is to put as much emphasis and as much pressure, if you will, on the educational piece as they are on the athletic performance piece. They need to be held in the same conversation. People need to be telling these students the importance of the educational piece, the importance of determining an appropriate fit for a career path and a field of study, because football or basketball or hockey or whatever the sport is not going to last forever.
Yep.
Coaches, athletic trainers, Dr. Pitts needs y'all to tighten up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And then, so I want to just separate the difference between formal education and informal education. And formal education, like I mentioned, is school and or institutions are involved. They have a hierarchical structure. They may have a uniform, maybe full-time. You may have to come proper, dressed accordingly. It's subject-oriented, and you have certification and or degree. So you get your diploma, you get your degree from college. Informal education is practical adult learning, diversity in methods and content, mobilizes local resources, built on learners' participation, real-life examples of learning. So those are, and then you also have non-formal education, which is a very long process. You learn from experience, you learn from home, you're learning from your environment, and you're learning from work. And I think that that's where a lot of students, student athletes, get caught and get stuck when they get into college. And some people just aren't that engaged by formal education because a lot of people think that what I'm learning right now I'm not going to use 20 years down the line. And I know a lot of people, my friends say, and I say it as well, the only things that I use from school now are reading and math. And that's about it. I did take a critical thinking class in college, which was something that was great. But I think that as we get older, we need to start branching off into informal education. Or while you're in college, and no matter what your major is, I would suggest taking a public speaking course. And no matter what your major is, you should be able to take that as an elective. But I took it in junior college and at Bowie State, and I would say that's one of the best classes that has actually translated to post-athletics and just in professional life, and even helping you communicate if you do make it to a level in sports where you have a platform and where you are at the podium. You need to learn how to speak. You need to learn how to express yourself in a professional way. Not becoming something you're not, but you need to be able to be a face. If you're a face of a program, they're going to be looking at you, and you have to be able to communicate in life because that's key once you do move on. And another thing is we have to take advantage of YouTube. We have to take advantage of the technology that we currently have, which ties into informal education, because no longer do we need to sit at a desk, depending on the major, depending on the curriculum, for an hour and 20 minutes. You can go on YouTube for 30 minutes, watch a video, and you can learn how to create some type of income for yourself or a new trade or things like that. And I think that, in my opinion, informal education is the best education. I know some people may differ. I don't know how you feel about that, Dr. Pitts. I know you come from the education background, but I would like to hear your take on that too.
I think that both are equally important. I think that that there's definitely crucial knowledge that we can gain from learning in a formal educational setting. Equally so, though, I believe that learning from the wisdom of others and walking through one's life's journey, being deliberate and intentional in connecting with people who know more than you do, not being the smartest person in the room on purpose. I truly, truly believe that the two go hand in hand and can serve to broaden one's level of understanding about a variety of things that are going on in life, and not being afraid to read substantive information that can broaden one's perspective about any number of topics that we may encounter in life. Jared, we actually have a caller, so I want to go to the line and see what our caller has to say. Caller 4644, welcome to House Talk Pregame. What is your comment or question?
Well, you was talking about education and athletics, and I agree with you. And I'm going to speak on the African American population. Yes, you don't have the balance between education and academics and athletics in these communities. I see children out on the football field 8 o'clock at night. They go to the court and they do 200 free throws in order to improve on their free throw skills. But they don't go home and do 100 math problems every night to improve on their mathematics skills.
Yeah.
And you also look at that at the elementary ages, those institutions are not preparing these children for higher education, and it shows.
Agreed.
Black students are overrepresented in low-paying majors. You got historical black colleges. You have about 5 at any given point in time that has a graduation rate over 50% in 6 years. That means that that family has to pay 50% more in order to get a 4-year degree.
Yes, sir.
And your athletes are not taking hard subjects. I have a grandson that's LSU, the engineering student. He plays baseball for LSU. He said, Papa, these athletes, these football players don't take hard subjects. And that's a tragedy because that's what you have just said. You have things in the balance. And then another thing, when you go out for these sports, you have other sports that the major sports, basketball and football, provide scholarships for that African-American children don't even go out for. And the major dominance on football and basketball.
Right.
So it's a lot of things going on. It's a lot of things that's going on there.
Right.
And that's why I'm for school choice or parents, because you do have parents that's functional in making sure that their child are exposed and get the resources that they need. But because of their economic conditions, they are trapped in these present traditional settings. And many of these children should not be there because they are being held back.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the politics involved that won't let them leave. Because every time a child sits there in that chair and counted at 11:30 in the morning, money goes to that building.
Right.
So how do you I've been dealing with this for a long time, going back to the 70s, and I see what I finally come to realize what's going on. They're using these kids. And these are not these are black administrators and principals and organizations and teachers unions. They are using these children. And another thing too, and I don't want I could, but I don't want to.
Please.
If you produce the children that's in high demand, and there's an organization called, and I'm not promoting the organization, but I'm telling you like it is, NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. They have national conventions where corporations come, which is a good thing because they all show up at one spot. I've seen in two consecutive years, 17 and 18, where you had a company like Northrop Grumman hire 400 plus 2 years in a row of black STEM graduates for its company. Wow. Not including the other companies that they're hiring these young people. And these kids are starting off at $65,000, $75,000, and $85,000 a year.
Yes.
So, and in 19, Lockheed Martin equally done the same thing, hiring these young people. So it's not people saying that if these kids are educated, they're not in demand. That's not true. They are in demand. But you have to prepare them. If somebody kicked the door open, if you don't have nobody to put through the door, well, what's the use?
Right. And I wanted to add to your point, sir. You said something that provoked my thoughts about conversations that I've had within my own school district where we have a man of color as our district superintendent, and in conversations that I've had with persons of color that have head up the Parent Teachers Association. They said, Dr. Pitts, these parents will come out for an athletic event. We see that. They'll come to basketball games, football games, and whole nine yards, but we cannot get them to come out to a PTA meeting. We cannot get them to engage in discussions about the importance of the educational component of these children. So my interpretation, in part of what you said, kind sir, is this is a systemic problem. It is a systemic problem that is at the very fiber of our existence as black and brown people across this nation. It is a systemic issue that we are seeing at the collegiate level. It is a systemic issue that we are seeing at the corporate level. And it is going to take a collaborative effort. And you said something powerful. You talked about the STEM program and the STEAM programs. Why is there not more emphasis in having this as a part of our curriculum in our schools? Why? Because our districts are so poor in many places all over the nation. Well, how could we change this? We could change this by, in part, parents getting involved in PTA, by communities being willing to perform parent advocacy programs that can educate parents that are coming from impoverished backgrounds where systemic issues with low education and a lack of value on education is perpetuated from generation to generation to generation. It is going to take a collaborative effort. It is going to take discussions like these and us, those of us that see the value in education, having these discussions, being change agents, boots on the ground, in people's face, and making the decision to hold people accountable for holding our black and brown children back. Sir,
you know what, Dr. Pitts?
Go ahead, sir.
I've heard your name before, so I know you're very concerned about education. I don't know where, but I have. But see, here's the problem. It is a major problem. You have to have parents that know this. Today you have 35-year-old grandparents. Those are not intergenerational assets.
Yes.
Another point. You are raising young people today with a lack of authority, respect for authority.
Yes.
They have a lack of respect for authority in human beings. They have a lack for respect of authority in a STOP sign, in a red, yellow, and green sign. Something as simple as that. And then that reflects out what you see going on in the streets when it comes down to police that ask to comply.
Yes.
It's one thing that springs off of another. If you don't have parents that come from a culture where this is normal for them, then you can imagine what the children are going to be like.
Right.
It is a major problem. I'm telling you, it is a major problem. And I don't know what all the answers is. I know one thing, though. Like I said, I'm for school choice with vouchers. And, here's another point. In the St. Louis area, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch done an article, and it listed how money is spent in public schools. Do you know that you have black school districts? I mean, a district that may be 99% black that have more money per child than you do in their counterparts, which may be 99% white. So money is not always the case.
Right. It's how they're spending
it. It's more serious than that. It's how they're spending it. You're right. In many cases of the time.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And then another thing that I wanted to hit on while we're on this topic is when you talk about the college level, I think that there's not a lot of drive for the athletes to embark on other, educational opportunities or gain more knowledge because in 41 states, there was an article that said in 41 states, the highest paid public employee isn't a professor, it's not a politician, it's not a neurosurgeon or anything like that, but it's the college football or basketball coach. So that automatically tells you that you're more important than the entire state. Football comes first. Football is king. So you need to focus on this while I'm here. We're paying the coach all this money. We're putting money back into this program. We need you to perform. And I've been in situations where you have class, but you have practice as well. And it's kind of like you feel guilty for leaving practice to go to class because you think somebody may take your spot. And there needs to be more reassurance to the student athlete that it's okay to take your education just as important or more important.
It should be a demand. And let me ask you this. Do you know how many young students, young players were sacrificed to produce one LeBron James, one Kobe Bryant? We're talking about thousands.
Yeah.
Correct.
Parents had to get them prepared, buy their equipment, get them to the practice, get them on travel games. You're talking about thousands where only a few make it to the big stage. If reparations should be paid by anybody, those major athletes should be paying reparation to these young people that sacrifice their life in order to provide you with the competition you need to hone your skill to be sitting on the pinnacles you're sitting on today.
That's powerful. Right. That's a powerful truth right there, sir. It is. Oh my goodness. It reminds me of when I was teaching at the high school level and teaching the alternative educational class for English. And at one point, I believe the total number of students I had in that class was 34. And it was made up of seniors and juniors, and some of which were scholar athletes. Well, here's the problem with that. There were scholar athletes that had been pushed through school from kindergarten on through, and at their senior year in high school, they were hitting hard on that football team, but were reading on a 4th, 5th, or 6th grade reading level, and had to have special accommodations in order to be able to take our PARC, the state proficiency test for academic excellence. It is disheartening. It is disheartening, and I believe that the educational system in this country has done a tremendous disservice to Black and brown children. I believe that it is a multi-generational problem, and to your point, sir, about parents, I can't even tell you how many times I had a Black or brown child in school that was a disruption to the learning environment because of their inappropriate behavior, and the mama or the grandmama comes up to the school with, smacking gum with booty pants on and bedroom slippers, cussing administration out because ain't nobody going to be talking to my baby this way.
Exactly.
Your child can't read. Your child can't read, and if I'm going to go there, folks, so hold on. I need you to sit your ghetto behind down, go somewhere, and learn how to parent properly so that you can educate your child on the importance of respecting authority and the value of education. But you know what? It doesn't happen because it is a multi-generational problem that has never been appropriately addressed. And then when people like Dr. Pitts come hard and have close conversations, folk are mad and want to fight and accuse Dr. Pitts of being bougie and who the blankety blank she thinks she is anyway. But then we have to deal with the illiteracy of these children, and we have to deal with the breakdown of our communities because these issues have not been appropriately addressed. And as the gentleman caller stated, we have black and brown administrators all over this country who some of them are not doing their part. They are collecting these big salaries and driving these fancy cars, and they're not doing their part. Board of Education members, some are doing it, some are not. In the school districts that are predominantly black and brown across the nation, where the black and brown board members are doing their part, guess what? We see the positive results of them doing their part. But there are far too many districts where our children are being set up for failure unless little Hakeem or little Alizé Rum and Coke Brown is a phenomenal scholar athlete. And then it's all hands on deck because she's going to be your key or he's going to be your key to live in a mansion and to sip lemonade by your pool. We've got to stop this foolishness.
And we got to face it.
To stop it. And we have to
tell it like it is, like you're doing right now. You got to tell it like it is. And I tell you another thing too. Your politics is lousy. I listened to Bill Clinton on a video some time ago, and he's saying that he wants to see Syrian refugees to be brought here to redevelop Detroit.
Wow.
His wife said that. I mean, just think of what's going on there. What are you going to do with the people that's there?
Right.
What are you going to do with them? Throw them under the bus? Here's another thing. You talk about not able to read. And I know I sound hard saying this. I'm going to tell you like it is. You provide programs to teach foreigners how to speak English, whereas a United States citizen, that child coming out of the urban areas having problems speaking English is all right because they speak the language that's spoken at the house.
Say that.
But where is the programs to help develop that child in their astute ability to speak American English? Where are they?
Well, you know what? It's because there is this stigma in black and brown communities all over the nation that to speak correctly, to speak proficiently, is to act white. So,
that's ridiculous.
we have to address the cultural stigmas that exist amongst our own people. Since when does being able to hold an intelligent conversation make you white? My entire life, I have been accused of acting white, wanting to be white. No, I just choose to be an educated girl, young woman, and woman of color who was not permitted to speak in that fashion in my home. I was not permitted to use slang. And the rare occasion I do now, my parents still look at me sideways. Like, wait a minute. We paid all this money for you to go to school and you're using slang? It's taboo. But in our communities all across the nation today, to speak correctly, to enunciate and to pronunciate and to actually have an extended vocabulary, somehow, some way, is attributed to wanting to be white, wanting to be a sellout. It's a disgrace. It is a disgrace.
Yeah,
it is a disgrace.
I think in some households, they just don't see the value of education only because they don't. It's not a lot presented in the media to African American young men, young women, of the benefits of being educated formally and informally. They only see the benefits of having a killer crossover, getting into the league, and getting millions of dollars while you're there. And then another thing is that when you think about what makes colleges go as far as funding, what makes college athletics go, is having a top-level athlete. A top-level scholar is not going to benefit the athletic program at all. So I think that's a major issue right there. And, again, it goes back to putting the emphasis on education. And I remember back in, I think it was 2010, I believe, at UNC, they had that big scandal where it was over 200 courses that were created within the African and Afro-American Studies Department. And it was to support the students that were ill-equipped to maintain their good academic standing along traditional lines. So they were giving fake classes out just so they can get on the field and play. And, like, what do you think is going to happen to that kid once he graduates and he goes into the real world and he has no education at all, except the only thing he became better at was football?
Right. Young man, you know what? You can see it now. You can see it in these people out here looting and rioting and protesting. They have come to a point in their life where they realize something is wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to, before we thank you for your contribution to such a robust
And I want to
discussion.
thank you too, Miss Dr. Pitts. I want you to know this. I know there's many times you feel like the Maytag man, but believe me, there's people out there that think like you. They just don't have the platform.
Yes, sir.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. That was some great insight right there. Very good insight right there.
Yeah.
And then, he hit on a lot of powerful topics, and like we talked about before, it starts in the home. And I know some people, you may be in a situation where the resources aren't, there for you, or they're not as easy to obtain. But we have to also think, that's the reality of the situation. But what can we do outside of that to create a different reality? And that's when you have to tap into your online databases. If you have access to a laptop or, even a cell phone that has internet access, there's a site called Lynda, LYNDA.com. And it's a database where you can go on there and literally educate yourself on nearly any topic that you want to learn, from web design, web development, design and photography, mobile app development, business and professional development. There's like hundreds of courses for each topic, and they're not expensive or anything. I think you can take a course for like $15. So that's an area that is available for these young people to start learning. And no longer do we have to make the excuse of, oh, this isn't here, this resource isn't here. We have to come together as a community. If your brother or your sister doesn't have a laptop, let them borrow yours if they want to use it to educate their child. And, that's just a great resource I didn't learn about until I was out of college. And it goes back to them hiding certain things that they don't want us to know because they want African Americans, male and female, to stay at a certain threshold. And the parents have to educate themselves as well. It doesn't have to just be the athlete. A parent needs to educate themselves so they can better steer their child in the right direction. Because when you get to college, yes, they're going there, they're going to get a degree, but there's so much more that has to be done for the student athlete than just getting a degree. You're not really separating yourself from that guy or that girl that went to the same school that didn't play a sport, and every year they were in internships. Every year they were building experience. So when they go and give them their resume, they have 4 years of experience, and you have 0. And that's putting you behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
You know what I used to say to my English students, Jay? I used to tell them that I could put $1,000 in a book and leave it on the bookshelf right in my classroom, and it would never get found. It would never get found. I need folks to get off of Facebook, get off of TikTok, get off of Instagram, stop buying $150, $200 Jordans, and buy some books. I need folks to actually touch the pages and read them. Sit down and read with your children. Educate yourself. You all know I'm not spiritually deep, but I'm a woman of God. I'm a woman of faith. I don't make no apologies for it. And the Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, guess what? There are substantive, valuable, effective ways to educate oneself about real life important things that impact how you live with your life, how you view life, how you view parenting, and at everything. If you would get your priorities in order. I get so sick and tired of seeing 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds on social media shaking what their mama gave them and doing these little rap songs and everything else, but they can't spell their name.
Right.
They don't know their alphabet. They don't know their colors. They don't know anything except how ignorant. And it is disgusting. And it grates on my last nerve. But more importantly, it is a tremendous disservice to our young people to set them up to fail. I don't know, Jay, when we stopped having the mindset that we want better for our children than what we have experienced ourselves. I get that there are parents out there that might not be able to read, but what does that have to do with humbling oneself and saying, I can't read, but I want little Jasir, little Hakeem, little Hakima, little Hakifa, little, Jonquetta Brown to be able to read. And I'm going there on purpose with these crazy behind names because, that's another show. But we are stacking the deck against our children. We're not teaching them, because this is not the case in every home. Right now I'm speaking to the homes where this is the case. We are not teaching them what they need to know to be able to be positive and productive members of society.
Correct.
These kids are spending more time playing video games than they are reading books. This virtual platform and this hybrid platform that we have to be in now because of COVID-19, in these poor homes where education wasn't valuable anyway, these kids are going back to school next year in the building so far behind. It's a disgrace. They're playing video games all day. They're learning new songs. They're watching all the crime and violence, and these kids are glorifying this maladaptive behavior.
I see it all the time on social media.
Yeah.
And then if you do speak up and you say something about it, then people come at you like you're wrong for trying to correct it.
Right.
And that's just the whole mentality that needs to be changed. I mean, just like you said, like you don't really see a lot of kids reading books versus a phone. And I think that's just starting them off very bad because when I was younger, I read in middle school. I read a lot, and it wasn't any books like on Rich Dad Poor Dad or anything, but I was reading and things like that. I didn't read in college, but I picked it back up, and it just it's something good to take your mind into a whole nother area, and then also
you
the
can
books that
explore
are
the
informative
world
where you can
through
learn.
the gift of reading.
Exactly, and that's something that has been taken out of the households, and I think that it needs to come back in. But social media, TV, things like that, just take over it. And another topic with education, and you're seeing it now a lot with COVID, and unfortunately, people in situations where they don't have employment, a lot of people are starting to dip into entrepreneurial endeavors, and want to build businesses and things like that, which is great to see because that's what this world was built on, people creating things, people creating, inventions, business ideas. And I'm not here to say that, you should only be an entrepreneur. I'm not here to say that you should find yourself in corporate America. Whichever works for you. But we can speak on the entrepreneurial endeavors because me, and like I stated in From Cleats to Loafers, is that I believe as athletes and as a former athlete, you're brought up in an environment where every single day you have to wake up and you have to go get it. You cannot slack because one wrong move can be your job, it can be your career, it can be your scholarship if you don't perform well on the field. So that same mindset carries over a lot into entrepreneurship, where every day you have to wake up, every day you have to be self-motivated, self-driven to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think that's something that a lot of former athletes should at least look into, even if you do go into your career, if you're teaching at a school, if you're going into the law field, still look into an entrepreneurial endeavor, because that can be something that is a side hustle, or you can do that potentially and it overrides what you do on your regular job, or you can keep two, and that can just be another stream of income. And I think that's something that has to be taught in schools and in colleges as well, because that is a lot of those aspects relate, to the real world more so than what we learn in a communications class that we have no interest in.
Jay, Andre sent me a clip, and I it's not on my phone right now. I can't find it, but he sent me a clip the other day. I don't remember who the guy was, but it was a powerful speaking engagement that this guy did, where he was talking about basically people clowning him about being. They clowned him at a point in his life when he was 29 years old, living in his parents' basement. And what he said was, when you all were, in undergrad and partying and going to the Jersey Shore and drinking and wet t-shirt part, he ran it down. He ran down all of the highlights of undergrad, right? And he said, you're going on spring break, you're going this, that, and the other, and doing this, that, and the third. He said, I was thinking about my dream. I was, and it wasn't that he didn't go to college. It was that his priorities were very, very different. He was focused on dotting I's and crossing T's and fleshing out the vision that he had for his future as an entrepreneur, and they were busy partying and wilding out and having a good time. He said, I missed out on all of that stuff, but he wouldn't give up the path that he chose for himself for anything, because in the grand scheme of things, now he's doing better than most of them. He invested his time, his energy, his effort, and his commitment to education to preparing a brighter, more successful future for himself. So I wanted to plug that, because I think that it's so important that all students, not just scholar athletes, I think that it is so very important for students to understand that life is not just a nonstop party. And I don't mean to sound like a parent here, but what I'm saying is that Dr. Pitts got a whole lot of partying in. Let me just go ahead and tell it like it is. I got a whole lot of partying done. Okay? I had a whole lot of fun during undergrad and even in grad school. I had a ball. However, because there was such a tremendous value placed upon education in my home and in my family, slacking on grades was never an option. I was born to be an entrepreneur. I've known it literally since I was a little girl, that I was just not going to be in a position where I was going to be a part of the rat race of being an employee all my life. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that there's not value in that. There is. But this is how I view being an employee. Being an employee is an opportunity for you to glean knowledge that you don't have. It's boots on the ground, in your face and space. The employment realm is a natural lab, if you will. It is an opportunity for one to gain experience, to gain knowledge, and to learn the ins and outs of something that you might not have otherwise been familiar with. Hence why internships and practicums are so important, because it's giving you firsthand knowledge. In those settings, you will learn some things to do correctly, and because human beings are human beings, you're going to definitely learn some things that you should not do when you get out on your own. All right? So emphasizing that everybody perhaps is not supposed to be an entrepreneur. I think that that's fair because we have to have balance, right? We have to have balance in the universe. But for those of us that have that constant longing for more and different and better than what being an hourly or a salary employee affords us the opportunity to do and be, entrepreneurship is definitely something that you should consider very, very seriously. And one more thing, Jay, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it as tactfully as I can. I've often, let's just face it, I'm from an economically depressed area, so I've known a lot of drug dealers throughout the course of my life. And what I have said is, if you are intelligent enough to run a drug ring, and some of the drug dealers that I've known over the years were part of cartels. Let me just go ahead and put it out there.
Right.
Why can't you run a legitimate business?
Yep.
Why can't you take that knowledge, that ability to think professionally in a hierarchical manner and put that level of intelligence and creativity to a legitimate business that builds up the community rather than poisons it and contributes to its deterioration?
Limited thinking.
Yeah.
Right there. And I think that the internship aspect is very, very important. And that's what's really going to give a lot of the college students, specifically college student athletes, the upper hand. Because once you do go into post-athletics, the fact that you played a sport, it can sometimes give you an advantage over somebody else. But the way to really solidify your slot, if it is, a job that you're going to get, imagine if you have the athletic background, you have the team building skills, you have the communication skills and all that for a team to achieve a goal, but then you have years of experience in an internship. Just by having that, you're going to make yourself so much more valuable in the marketplace if that's the route that you choose to go post-athletics. Because if you can just take some time, even if it's 2 months a year while you're at your school to intern in a program, and if you can do that for 4 years, 5 years, you have 8 to 10 months of experience in an internship, and you've learned so much knowledge over those years that you would have never got if you were just tunnel vision on football and believing football was going to happen. And then another thing is that allows you to really get a sense of what you want to do career-wise, because you can do an internship for 2 months, even if it's free. Don't go into an internship expecting it to be paid. The experience will pay off down the line. But you can go in that internship for 2 months, and then you can come out of it and realize, you know what, I thought I was interested in this field. I think I'm, want to change my mind. Imagine you doing that on a yearly basis instead of waiting 4 to 5 years. Then you graduate. Then you got another 4 to 5 years to figure out what you like. You can literally speed up time, and not that speed is the most important thing in life, but if the opportunity presents itself, why not put yourself in a position where you can shortcut, the times you have to spend into finding a career post-athletics by doing internships. Or you may get an internship for all 4 years, and it's the same internship, and you really like, and you confirm that this is what you really want to do. I think that only can benefit us and not hurt us. But that also comes down to the college athletics program. The coaches being willing to allow student athletes to take time away from football and actually intern in something that is going to be long-lasting, because they know everyone is not going to make it to the professional league.
Right,
so
the majority are.
So we need to intentionally set them up. The money is there from schools to set these internships up. There's so many alumni and boosters that come from these schools that are giving money to kids on game day, but they're not giving them knowledge and experience in the corporation that they're running Monday through Friday. And I think that's a disservice. So I think internships is one of the major things, because if you can force that on a student athlete, like you force them to eat, you force them to go to the weight room, they'll be in a much better position.
Yeah. To your point, Jay, the family initiative that Heritage Sports Radio Network is doing is actually speaking to that. It's particularly looking at the role of education in properly preparing student athletes and other students that are black and brown for the corporate arena, and how do we bridge that gap between the preparedness that the corporate folks are saying that they need in relation to the level of education that our students and student athletes are receiving. So I say to the listening audience, when you have an opportunity, go to Heritage Sports Radio Network's website, and when you scroll down, you can click on the link and read that article on the Family Initiative. It is a powerful, powerful initiative that is speaking to exactly what Jared and I are discussing right now. The other thing that I want to add that I think is very helpful where internships and practicums are concerned is that for many of our listening audience, they know that Dr. Fitz actually started, my career out in the hospitality industry. The first 3/4 of my career were spent working in hotels and restaurants in a management capacity, which, some might say, well, okay, then she transitioned to education, and now she's creating this unique marriage between education and behavioral mental health. Well, what I say to the listening audience is I've created a trifecta, because the knowledge that I gained in my internships and in my practicum when I was in my hotel, restaurant, and culinary days has gave me foundational insight to the importance of relationships. It gave me the foundational understanding of appropriate customer service. It gave me appropriate foundational knowledge on how to navigate the various relationship dynamics that would present themselves in those particular settings that I was then able to carry over into education and carry over into behavioral and mental health. So don't be limited in your thinking, believing that one thing is not related to another, because at the end of the day, you would be amazed at how the skills that you learn in the beginning of your academic journey can transition and translate over into soft skills and hard skills that you can use in the corporate arena once you get into the intern and practicum situations at the collegiate level, and then graduate and go into the corporate arena. Even if you do go into the pros, I say this about going pros. You need to know how to manage your darn money. You need to know how to read contracts. You need to know whether or not the people that are representing you are representing you properly or taking advantage of your ignorance and your lack of knowledge. And before I go back to you, Jared, again, I want to shout out our homegrown representative of academic excellence in Jonathan Taylor, who graduated from Salem High School, went on to Wisconsin, was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts a couple of weeks ago, scored a touchdown from what I understand. I didn't get to see the game. It wasn't televised, or if it was, I didn't see it. But one of the things that is so extraordinary about Jonathan is that academics were always a priority for him, and education is a priority to him. Obviously, the athletic gift and talents that he has are very, very important, but this young man is exceptionally, exceptionally bright. He understood by design of parenting and by design of nurturance from the coaches at Salem High School in Salem, New Jersey, the importance of academics being paramount, that took him to a D1 school. He graduated, just from what I understand, if the information that I received was correct, he graduated with his bachelor's and his master's. And then, look, what sound like my quarterback, because that's what Dakota did. Had to plug that too. But that's what he did, because there's a value that Jonathan was taught, and that Dak Prescott and scholar athletes like them were taught to value education, and that it will only benefit them greatly at the pro level in their personal and professional endeavors to impact their communities and to be, as you said early in the show, to be an appropriate representation of their NFL organizations in the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, because that would just branch off into so many other opportunities because, while a lot of these guys are in the NFL, you have that platform that it would be a great time to go into other endeavors and maybe create a business and create some additional income outside of the NFL. Even though that NFL income, depending on what level you're at, is great. You may think you don't need anything, but you should always be thinking, ahead and always set yourself up and use that platform while you can. Combine your platform and education to, succeed. And I know at Bowie State, they're actually going to be doing construction on a new entrepreneurship academy at Bowie State, where it's going to be a brand new building with, I think, about 450 living, bed living and learning community. They're going to have retail space, things like that. So it's you see some schools going towards that route of breaking out of the mode of only giving the curriculum that's been there for the last 100 years, and they're trying to do something different. And I think that's going to be great. And hopefully the athletes there really take care of that, because you'll see stuff come up on a campus and they're doing all these new things for students, but a lot of times some student athletes, they think, oh, I'm too cool and I don't need to go there. I don't need to go to any educational, seminars and things like that. That's not going along with the persona that we're supposed to give off as student athletes. So I think breaking that mold, like the guy Myron Rowe, who was at Florida State, I don't know if you remember him, but he was a scholarship athlete, but he's actually a doctor now, and he had went overseas while he was at school to complete his studies and his degree. But the thing is, and you'll see this sometimes, is it kind of interfered with football. So he had to choose which route do I want to go, because of the field I'm in, I can't give the same amount of time to football as I can if I wasn't in this field. And what happened as a result, his football suffered. His career was very short because he put more emphasis on his post-career success, and that's what he's doing now. And, I'm pretty sure he's doing good for himself in that field, but it goes to show sometimes you may have to make a decision between education and sports and think forward, and you'll be all right. But I think that it's something that is hopefully picked up more on within the household, starting in the household, educating our youth, because that is the most powerful thing you can have. If you get a degree, nobody can take that from you. But if you learn outside of that, you'll be even more, threat in society.
And Jared, to that point, I wanna take a minute, and it just came to me as you were talking. I want to take a moment to honor the memory of Kobe Bryant, who, as we know, went straight from high school into the league. But you talk about education and knowledge being power, and the extraordinary businessman that Kobe was. Phenomenal businessman. And he went straight from high school into the league because the value was placed on education first. The businessman that retired and left his, oh my goodness, such an extraordinary footprint on the world. The businesses and the knowledge that he imparted into the lives of his wife and children.
Right.
I mean, it's just extraordinary. The other person that I believe that is worthy of honor is still with us, Aaron Maben, former NFL player and activist down in Baltimore, who is using his NFL platform and art as a means to educate and empower and liberate Black and brown children in Baltimore. Such an extraordinary businessman. Knowledge for days. Why?
Okay.
Because the value was placed on education. And it is just, there's not enough emphasis, listeners, that we can put on this. We have given you, this show was fire.
I know.
That was fire.
Just so much. And we thank the guests for coming in, too. He really, made some great points as well.
The gentleman that called in, education is paramount. Education is fire. It is fire that can equip those who value it enough to never stop getting it. Learning is a lifelong process that can take you to levels in life that you've never even dreamed of. You can explore the world by reading a book until you're physically able to explore the world. You can educate yourself about money, wealth, fiscal responsibility by reading a book. You can inform yourself about your psychological well-being by getting the initial information that you need so you can ask the appropriate questions when you go see a mental health professional. Knowledge is power, folks. Education is key. We've talked on previous shows about the Willie Lynch letter, where it, who cares whether it was a myth or real? We're still seeing the manifestations of it in today's society. And one of the messages in that letter was, keep the body strong and the mind weak. Listeners, we need you to be of sound mind, and we need you to have an educated mind. It is time to break the systemic and the multi-generational curse of ignorance in our Black and brown communities all over the nation and all over the world. Folks, we need you to get out and vote. Your vote is your voice. Stop embracing the ignorance and thinking that your vote does not matter. Your vote matters. You know why your vote matters? Because your voice matters. We have the ability as a people to turn the tide of this election. Whether you're Democratic or Republican, that's none of my business. I'm telling you to vote. 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 Do not allow the antics that are going on for voter suppression to stop you from voting. Until next week, I am your empowerment coach and inspirational speaker, Dr. Lauren D. Pitts, my partner in crime and in education, Jared Johnston. We thank you for listening in today. We'll be right back next week at 11 a.m. with more on House Talk pregame. Have a great remainder of your Saturday and weekend, folks. Thank you for tuning in.